dear children, this is your teacher Azhar Khurshid, and today we are taking up the chapter directing, but with the last element of directing, that is communication. What is communication? It's said that communication is the transfer of information from the sender to the receiver, with the information being understood by the receiver. Now, what if you clearly examine the last part of this definition? It says that it should be clearly understood by the receiver. It clearly means that without clearly understanding what is intended to be conveyed, communication is not clear, it's not over. So you cannot say that communication is over unless and until whatever the sender intends reaches to the receiver. Now, coming on to the characteristics of this particular definition so that we can get a clear idea as to what it is. Characteristics. Number one, there should be two or more persons. Now, naturally, if one has to communicate with oneself, it means nothing. I know what I intend. But if I have to transfer this information to some other person, to the sender, this means that I have to be clear with my views, and then I have to be clear with the words that I use, with the gestures that I use, and it has to be because two or more persons. Then again, we'll see that this is an exchange of ideas because there is no one person, this is two or more persons. We exchange the ideas. There will be a feedback also. Then there should be a mutual understanding at the same time, and it can be direct or it can be indirect. Direct in the sense that I directly say it, or I can say via some people. So this means it can be direct or indirect at the same time. Coming on to the elements of the communication process. First of all, in the communication process, a sender who wants to say, who wants to communicate, so he will actually draft a message. So there is something in his mind, it may be an idea, a feeling or something like that which he wants to communicate to the receiver, right? Now, first of all, there has to be a sender, the first element of the process. You see the process? Here we have the first element, the sender. The next is his message, which I right now said, it can be a feeling, it can be an idea, it can be a suggestion. So he will actually encode whatever is in his mind. What do you mean by encoding? The third element. Encoding means that this particular message or idea or feeling should be given into a language. It should be given into a gesture, into some signs, graphics, whatever, a body language maybe. This is how he will encode it. This is encoding. Be clear about it. Then after encoding, it will go into a media. What is the media? It can be one to one. As I am talking to you, I am looking at you, one to one. It can be face to face. It can be via telephone. It can be via an email. So these are the media. These are the mediums, or this is the media that he can go into, so that his message will be sent to the receiver. Then the receiver, before receiving anything, please remember, before receiving anything, he should be able to decode it. What do you mean by decoding? Now, after encoding, you need to know what is decoding. Decoding is something different, just a converse. This means that you have to actually understand it. Say, for example, I am speaking to you in a language that you don't understand. How will you be able to decode it? This means that the receiver should first of all be able to decode it, then only he will receive it. Then naturally he will either understand it. If he understands, there are many other elements he should be able to, or he will not be at the same time. So if he is able to understand it, it means he has decoded the message. And then after decoding, he will be able to give the feedback. But in this particular process, there are these elements which I discussed right now. There can be an element of hindrance like noise via transmission. There's a distorted voice. The person who is sending is correct, is saying something right, what he intends, but the other person is not getting due to that transmission, loss of transmission of the words or whatever in the media. Now coming on to the importance, why am I as a teacher of business studies teaching you this? What has it to do with management studies? What has it to do with directing? Why is it an element in directing? Let's understand the importance of communication in directing. Number one, it acts as the basis for coordination. Now you see children, as I said already, we have discussed it in many videos, that basis of coordination is the essence of management. You cannot think of any function like planning, organizing, staffing, directing, control. You cannot think of anything unless and until there is a soul into it. What is the soul? Soul is the coordination, the essence of all managerial activities. So communication, when you act, when you speak up your mind, the direction is started. Everything comes into direction. Everything comes into action. We move towards the same objective. This means that it acts as the basis for coordination. Number two, that it ensures or helps in smooth functioning of the organization. It's not haphazard. Everybody knows what he is going to do, when he is going to do it, because he is well communicated. Number three, that it acts as the basis for decision making. You sit down, communicate, and there is a transfer of ideas, and you come to a common consensus or common ideas. This means that common ideas, common understanding is facilitated. That increases managerial efficiency at the same time, and it promotes the cooperation and industrial peace. It establishes effective leadership, because leaders are leaders only if they communicate well. They know what they have to use. They know what word, where and when they have to use to which group of people. So this facilitates that leadership also. And last but not the least, very importantly, it boosts the morale of the people working together as a group. So it provides motivation at different levels also. Coming on to the types of communication. Please remember, dear children, there can be communication at two different ways, broadly speaking, in an organization. You can have a formal communication. Now, what do we understand with this formal communication thing? Formal means when you are strictly tightened with the formal structure. Like, for example, we had earlier talked about the scalar chains. A speaking to B as in his position, and B responding back as in his position. So this is scalar. This means formal. You are, within your formal lines, and you are communicating with each other at different levels of organization, at different levels of management. Right? It can be formal, it can be informal. What is informal? Informal is something where you are not, as per your position in the organization, speaking to anybody. It is something out of your own will, out of your own wish. After all, we all are social animals, as I said earlier. That means that we can have a formal relationship, like my principal is the principal and my subordinate is the subordinate. Okay, I know that this is formal, but at the same time my subordinate is my friend. It's informal. So this means informal structures arise out of formal structures. Formal structures give birth to informal structures naturally, because we tend to be colleagues formally, but we tend to be friends. We like or dislike somebody. This is our own choice. So this is a grapevine sort of a thing which I'll be discussing. So coming on to the first one, that is the formal one. What is formal? You are speaking, communicating as per your position. Now see, number one, why do we have this formal structure? Because it's in writing. The importance is everything has to go in writing. It has to be smoothly done. It has to be authentic. It has to be actually through the scalar chains, and it has to be received and recorded at the same time. Very, very important. Now, there are things, it has to be systematic at the same time. Coming on to formal lines. What do you mean by formal? Formal is that you are, as I said already, that you are speaking as per your position. You are either a superior or a subordinate, as and when you are communicating. Now, coming on to certain things, certain structures, right, that can be made out of these formal and informal things. Like, informal, you can have a vertical or a horizontal thing. What is a vertical thing? vertical communication comes when you are in a senior subordinate position. See, for example, A is a senior to B, and B is a senior to C, and C is a senior to D. Now, they will be communicating naturally in formal lines. Now, how will they be communicating? Now, it can be an upward, as you see, or a downward communication. When it's an upward communication, it can be, you are quite familiar with it. Now, when it's an upward thing, it can be, say for example, a request, an application, something like please. So this is going from down to up, it's upward, right? From up to down means that when there is a command coming up from the senior to the junior, when there is something coming up from like a command, a direction, a guideline, an order, this is something which comes from up to down. So it has to be vertical only because it goes like this, right? So it is vertical. Now when I say horizontal, what is it? Horizontal is that I am a manager which is in production manager, and I have to communicate with the sales manager here, or I have to communicate with some other manager here, say purchase. So this is something that is horizontal. So cross. It can be either vertical, which I said already, it can be or horizontal. Horizontal means that I am communicating with my counterpart in the other department. He is coming. Now the example is, say for example, production. I will be discussing about the purchase. I will be discussing about the purchase of certain items, the design of certain items. These are within that, level. So this means horizontal. Now out of these two structures, 1 and 2 structures, there are certain shapes made. Now these are all formal, but we have to discuss the shapes now. Now as I said, vertical, it always becomes one part of the shape. That means the single strand. Formal, single strand. Formal and single strand means when A as a senior is directing B and B as a senior is directing C. So this comes upward to down or downward to up. This is formal. Everybody knows the position. He cannot speak beyond that, and it will be violating the rules if you are communicating something else. It has to be formal as per the structure. So this is single strand. I hope you understand that. Coming on to the next one, you see this cross thing, this is called a wheel. Why is it called a wheel? Because say for example, I'll give you an example of a school. You all have been to a school. Now in that school, in examination times, there is this examination cell, right? And in this examination cell, there has to be a person who is heading that department. Being a senior or a junior to this examination person, one has to consult him before going to any decision regarding examination, because he is the person who is to be consulted every time regarding examinations. So you cannot go without him. Everybody, whether it's a senior A consulting this person, B consulting this person, C consulting this person, D consulting this E. This means everybody keeps him in loop. This becomes a wheel, right? Now I hope I'm clear there. Moving on to a circular. Circular means it is said to be the slowest form of communication, because one is communicating to two other adjoining persons with him. How? Say I'm a senior or any level of the management. I am to communicate with my senior and with my counterpart at the same time, or with my junior at the same, two adjoining persons. Two adjoining everywhere. Two adjoining means you need to communicate. Actually, at times it delays that communication thing. You are later, but it has to go like that only because you're formally tied up like that. Coming on to this particular thing, this is circular, but at the same time it has certain leniencies given in it. You can communicate as and when you like to anybody in that structure, circular structure, but you can communicate anytime, anywhere, because you may go ahead with your work. It's not that you have to wait for that two adjoining as in circular. I hope I am clear there. Now, last but not the least, very, very importantly, there is one more shape made out of those two structures, vertical and horizontal. We have formal structure called inverted V. What is that inverted V? It is that two subordinates are reporting to one superior and at the same time senior superior at the same time. one senior and one super at the same time. This means that we are doing two things at the same time. We are reporting to one and we are reporting to the super senior at the same time, which normally does not happen in formal things. We have to wait. But inverted V is something where you can do it. So it gets a shape like inverted V. That's why it's called inverted V shape. So these are all the formal structures. Now children, coming on to the next thing, that is the informal thing. What is informal? First of all, understand this. Informal is, as I said earlier when I took up this particular topic, this is that something will arise, will be born out of formal structures, because I meet my colleagues here in this particular area where I am delivering a lecture. There are people around me. Naturally, every time I come, I am not a robot. I will feel like I may talk to them at ease, like about their children, about home affairs, about something else. So this is naturally coming out of my formal thing. I am coming here formally for a purpose, but there may be some other thing also. This means informal, right? Informal structures are born out of formal structures, which I said already. I hope it's clear. It is always verbal. There is nothing written. It can be rumors. There may be unauthentic things coming up. There may be something which is not desirable at the same time. There may be desirable things at the same time. But why as a manager do I have to keep a track on this? This is very, very important. Why am I teaching you informal when I am supposed to teach formal only? So informal is said to be known because this will be there. Whether you avoid it, stop it, whatever you do with it, it will be there. So a manager has to be alert and he can use it. Use it anytime, anywhere he likes it. Because if he has to get a feel of the new machines, new ideas, new change to be implemented in the organization, he can give a feel by sending a rumor only. Informal lines will do it very quickly and he will get a feel. What do the people think about it? So he may take a decision regarding whether to go for it or not at times. So we need both, not one of them. Now coming on to the structures made out of it, first of all, I'll be starting with the single strand. Again, there is a single strand. You may be surprised to see that there also is a single strand. Though we are not talking formally, we are not communicating formally, but still there is a single strand which says if the sender and the receiver are at two different ends, it will become single strand because it will cross the line vertically. Coming on to the next one, that is gossip. Gossip is something, say for example, I'm here, I'll move on to my department, any other department, I'll say a few words which are not formal. This means I'll be spreading something as a gossip. That means anywhere, irrespective of whether I should say it or not, I will go on gossiping everywhere. This is gossip. Coming on to probability. Probability is something where I am, irregular. I may speak to someone, I have some time, I will speak. I will not, I'll avoid. This means this is a probability whether I will go for this communication or not. As you can see in this particular 1 to 2 and leaving one aside. 1 to 3 other, leaving one aside. This means this is a probability. The next one, the cluster. This means that I am selective in sharing the information. I will go to a particular point and then see whether those people are there to whom I want to share this information with. This means I'll be selective. So I will be selecting it with my friends, maybe with the people I want to share willingly, with the people I like, whatever. This is informal typically. This means it's a grapevine thing. Grapevine, as in grapevine, the tree you have seen, that the branches go wherever they want. It's not that somebody will restrict them. They are in my yard and they go somewhere else in the neighbor's yard also. That is how informal communications are said to be grapevine. Now it's given by Keith Davis, the name. Coming on to the barriers. Are there any barriers in communication? Yes, of course. We are every time wanting to be clear, but we are not. What are the hindrances? Let's examine. There are certain barriers to effective communication in management. What are those? Broadly speaking, they are semantic they can be psychological, they can be organizational, and they can be personal barriers. One by one discussing them. Number one, if we are to talk about semantic barriers, what do we mean by the word semantic? First of all, understand this. Semantic means pertaining to language. Language means using of vocabulary, the translations, the words, everything. Right? And now if you are faulty there, that means there has to be something that will hinder the proper communication. It will not go to the other person. Right? It will be misinterpreted rather. Right? Now here we have the first one as semantic. What are the different things coming under the semantic barriers? Number one, badly expressed message. I am a poor person in this particular language. See, for example, English, I cannot draft a message, I cannot say it verbally. There are certain things coming my way which hinder it. So, badly expressed message, number one. Number two, symbols with different meanings. What do I mean by that? There is a word value, and value word is seen differently. I value my life. I value, what the value of this ring. These are two different things. But when I leave this word to be interpreted or thought of or taken by the receiver, I don't actually clear what I mean from the word and I leave it to him. He can misinterpret it. He can simply think of something else, and other person in the same group may think of something else. So that means my communication is not clear. I have to make it clear when I use these words with different meanings. That coming on faulty translations. There is a very good example. Say for example, I have drafted a message in English. Now this particular message has to go to the workers. Workers are not able to actually read it in this language. There is a translator who is translating this to the other language for their ease of communication, for understanding, right? Now, when the translation is proficient enough, he will translate it. But if he is not proficient with that language in which he is translating, that means there will be certain faults in it. And the workers will come to know of what I never intended as a sender. This means that it's faulty. It's a barrier in the communication, right? Now, coming on to one more thing, that is unclarified assumption. Unclarified assumptions means that you are giving certain things, examples, but you are not clearing them. What makes you do that? You are giving it and leaving it to the receiver, whatever he says, whatever he finds. Say for example, I say take care of the guest as a superior, take care of the guest. Now, taking care, I meant that he should be taken to hotel, he should be made to take a breakfast, lunch, everything should be seen quite clearly. But at the same time, I'm not saying anything like that. Take care means maybe the driver understands I have to take him to the hotel only. This means that it was an assumption, it was something that I was not clear about, number one. Then coming on to the technical jargons. Technical jargons, yet another part in semantic barriers, is that it's funny. I'll give you an example, and it's true. I once heard a program I was viewing it from the television. A doctor was online and people were calling him. The doctor was talking of some kidney ailments, but he used certain words which are typically meant for medical people. They only can understand. And he was giving this broadcast was for all. All means a common person. How could he understand this? I am using a technical term which is meant for a medico, right? Now he only will understand it. How am I expecting this common man, and this person is calling me, he's regularly involved me, he wants to know the answer. He is in a query, but this person is giving him a technical term and not clarifying what I mean. It is a total barrier in the communication. I have given you an example which is true, and you can find it anywhere. You can see a television program coming up or anything. This is what actually makes us, leave the program, because we feel that I don't know what he's saying. One. Then coming on to the body language. Say for example, I'm talking to you. There are certain things I'm at the same time doing something to you or not, but this is going with my voice, with whatever I'm saying. It should be matched. It should not be mismatched. Body language and your intentions, if they match, this will give a clear-cut, thing to the person who is receiving it. Clear-cut idea of the thing, rather, to the receiver who is receiving it. Now coming on to the next part of it, that is psychological barriers. Interesting, very interesting. What are psychological barriers? It means that there is something already in your mind. You as a person hold a personality, a psychology. This means that you are a person with a particular psychology, or maybe at that point in time when you are receiving this, you have a particular side, you are stressed or whatever, and you may evaluate different things. You may assess the speaker on different bases. Number one, the premature evaluation. What is that? This person who is speaking, he has not spoken full. His message is not complete. In the middle of the message, you are evaluating him. You are saying, okay, I know he will be speaking about this, and you will assume it. One, which is bad, because communication was not, he meant something else and you draw something else out of it. Coming on to the next one, that is lack of attention. Say for example, I have my children at home and my attention is totally onto them only, and I am teaching in a class. What will I do? What will the children receive from me? This means that if the listener is not attentive enough, he cannot draw anything out of how good the lecture is, how good the communication is. He cannot draw anything out of it because he is not attentive. There is one more thing, loss by transmission. That means I already spoke about the process, where I spoke about the transmission, the media into which you are talking. It can be an email, it can be a telephone, it can be something like that. Now this depends, this is totally technical. There can be a distortion in the voice. You are clear with your words, with your intentions, but he is not getting it. This can be there. And then distrust, very, very important. You don't trust the person who is speaking, and you don't want to listen. You don't want to get what he is saying. He is authentic, he is true, he is speaking it clearly, but you don't want it because there is distrust. When this psychological barrier of distrust is already built in your mind, you are not going to take it, so communication is hindered. Coming on to the organizational thing. Now organization, the structures, the formal, the informal, okay, there are structures like functional, divisional, many other things according to your product range and other things. And at times organizational policies are such stern, strict that they don't allow you to go for easy communication. You want to communicate, but they don't allow you. These are formulated very tight. Now number one, policies. Number two, the rules and regulations. Number three, very importantly, the status. If a boss who is conscious of his status will not allow you to speak, he will continuously draw something that he will stop you. He will give you an impression that I am the boss. So this status conscious thing is something that hinders communication. Number four, that is complexity and organizational structure, which I talked about, and organizational facilities. Let's come on to the facilities. Do you know that there are certain grievance boxes somewhere in the organizations where you can, without your name, anonymous, you can drop in a letter and say this is hindering, this is somewhere wrong in the organization. If these facilities are not there, and the door of the people who are bosses, who are going to listen to you, who can help you out, is not open to you, they won't allow you. These facilities are stopped. This means a communication barrier in the organization. Now coming on to the last but not the least, that's personal barrier. What is personal barrier? Personal means I as a person and you as a person. We two are different. Everyone is different. This means, number one, I am in a meeting, sitting in a meeting, listening to a person who is speaking in the meeting, and we all are listening. I feel that he is wrong, I should be correcting him right now. But I feel the challenge of the authority. Maybe next time he has something very bad about me in his mind and he will throw me out. And I think twice I should not go for it. This is a barrier in the communication because I am not let feel easy. Right? Then coming on to the lack of confidence. There are people who are sitting who are not confident of their words maybe, and this can be a hindrance in the communication. Unwillingness. Simply you will see a person never ever talking. He will be given a chance, he will not talk. This is a personal thing. Unwillingness to speak. Then again, lack of proper information. I am not informed. and I feel that should I speak or not? Oh, is that right? Whatever I'm speaking, this is confidence also, but I'm not informed at the same time. This can be a communication barrier. Now there are things, can we improve it? Can we improve it somewhere? Yeah, let's see how we can improve. Number one, clarify the idea before you can communicate. Clear it with yourself, then only communicate. Then consult others. Very, very importantly, consult some others which are there to be consulted for that particular reason. Then go ahead with them. Be aware of the language, the tone. At times your language, the tone you're speaking is something that misinterprets it. Then convey things that are, are for the listeners or for the value of listeners. It's not that they will not listen to you unless and until that they are of value. These things which you are trying to communicate are value to the listeners. Then communicate for the present and for the future, and follow up the communications, and at the last, be a good listener. Very, very important, be a good listener. You will be a good speaker somewhere, but it's very important to be a good listener. Dear children, I hope I communicated well. Thank you very much for being good listeners. I'll see you next time, inshallah. Goodbye.